I can't tell him that. I can't tell him.
You have to.
I can't. He's never gonna forgive this. How is he gonna forgive that?
She called me a liar. She called me a scammer. But she's
Sirens in the night, flashing lights, and Daniel's face pressed against a police car window. Nobody watching 90 Day Fiancé saw this coming. 1 minute, Lisa is planning her dream wedding. The next, she's watching the man she thought she knew being led away in handcuffs, his uncle right behind him. The shock is so raw, it almost feels staged. But this is real life, and Lisa's world has just been ripped apart in front of millions. Betrayal doesn't even begin to cover it. Imagine trusting someone with your heart, your future, and then seeing them accused of plotting behind your back. The confusion hits first, then the anger, then the cold, hollow ache of realizing you might never know the full truth. Lisa's phone explodes with messages, friends, family, even strangers online, all asking the same thing. What happened? How did the fairy tale turn into a crime scene? It's wild to think that only weeks ago, Lisa and Daniel were the couple everyone rooted for. Their video calls were full of laughter, inside jokes, and those little glances that make you believe in love again. Lisa's friends teased her about moving too fast, but she brushed it off. She said Daniel was different, that he made her feel seen, safe, and wanted. The show's cameras caught every sweet moment, every promise about forever, every plan for a life together in Nigeria. Even Daniel's uncle seemed like the perfect addition, wise, supportive, always ready with advice about marriage and family. The internet loved them. Fans made memes about their chemistry, their banter, their against-all-odds story. But now, all those memories feel like a cruel joke. The same uncle who toasted to their happiness is now sitting in a jail cell, and Lisa is left wondering if any of it was real. The question hanging over everything is simple but brutal. Was Lisa the target of a scam? Or did she get caught in a cultural misunderstanding that spiraled out of control? The police aren't saying much, but rumors are everywhere. Some say Daniel and his uncle were plotting from the start, using Lisa's trust to get access to her money. Others insist it's all a big mistake, that talk about finances is normal in Nigerian families, especially when marriage is on the table. Lisa's head spins with doubt. She replays every conversation, every text, every time Daniel mentioned building a future together. Was it love? Or was it a setup? Did she miss the signs? Or was she too quick to believe the worst? People online are already picking sides, but nobody has the full story. There are whispers about the uncle's real role in Daniel's life, about business deals and family secrets that never made it onto the show. Some insiders claim the uncle was always the mastermind, pulling strings behind the scenes while Daniel played the charming fiancé. Others say he was just a traditional elder trying to help his nephew start a new life. The truth is tangled, messy, and nobody's talking on the record. But one thing is clear. Lisa's trust is shattered, and the fallout is only beginning. If you think you've seen drama on this show before, you haven't seen anything yet. There's a detail about the uncle's involvement that's never been discussed on camera, and when it comes out, it's going to change everything you thought you knew about this story. Before the headlines, before the police, before the world started watching with popcorn in hand, there was just Lisa and Daniel, two people who seemed to find each other at exactly the right moment. Their story started like every great reality romance, late-night video calls, endless texts, and that giddy feeling when you realize someone on the other side of the world is thinking about you too. Lisa would light up every time Daniel's name popped up on her phone. He'd call her queen, send her voice notes in the middle of the night, and talk about how he couldn't wait to show her his world. The chemistry was obvious, even through a screen. Friends joked that Lisa was acting like a teenager again, but she didn't care. She was all in, and Daniel seemed to be right there with her. Their first meeting in person was pure reality TV gold. Lisa landed in Nigeria, nervous but excited, and Daniel was waiting with flowers and a smile that could melt steel. Cameras caught every hug, every awkward laugh, every whispered promise. They talked about marriage almost immediately, making plans for a future that felt both impossible and inevitable. Lisa's friends back home raised eyebrows, but she waved off their concerns. She said Daniel was different, that he made her feel alive in a way nobody else ever had. The show's producers ate it up, and so did the fans. Social media exploded with support, memes, and wild predictions about their wedding. But even in those early days, there were signs that not everything was as perfect as it seemed. Daniel's uncle was always around, hovering in the background with a polite smile and a watchful eye. He'd offer advice about Nigerian traditions, talk about the importance of family, and make sure Lisa felt welcome. At first, it seemed sweet. Who wouldn't want a future in-law who cared so much? But sometimes, his questions got a little too personal. He'd ask about Lisa's job, her savings, her plans for supporting Daniel once they were married. Lisa laughed it off, thinking it was just cultural curiosity. But the questions kept coming. Daniel would brush them aside, saying his uncle was old-fashioned, but the pattern was hard to ignore. The money talk started small. At first, it was about wedding expenses, then about setting up a home together, then about joint bank accounts and business opportunities. Lisa wanted to believe it was all part of building a life together, but sometimes the conversations felt rushed, almost rehearsed. Daniel would talk about how much easier things would be if they combined their resources, how they could invest in a business, maybe even buy property. Lisa hesitated, but Daniel always had a way of making her feel safe, like every decision was theirs, not his. Still, a tiny voice in the back of her mind wondered if she was moving too fast. What nobody saw on camera was the message Lisa found one night, buried in a thread of old texts. It was short, almost casual, but something about it made her stomach drop. She never told anyone, not her friends, not the producers, not even Daniel. That message sat in her phone, a silent warning she tried to ignore, but it would come back to haunt her when everything started to fall apart. If you think the drama so far is wild, wait until you hear what Lisa's been hiding. Lisa's fairy tale started to feel less like a dream and more like a puzzle with missing pieces. At first, it was easy to brush off the weird moments. Daniel's uncle asking about her retirement account, the sudden urgency around opening a joint bank account, the way Daniel would change the subject when Lisa asked about his own finances. But as the days passed, those little moments started stacking up. Lisa would catch Daniel and his uncle whispering in the kitchen, their voices dropping when she walked in. She'd find receipts for things she didn't remember agreeing to buy, or overhear them talking about future plans that sounded a lot more like business deals than wedding details. The vibe shifted from romantic to transactional, and Lisa felt it in her gut, even if she didn't want to admit it. Viewers at home started picking up on the tension too. Social media lit up with theories and side-by-side clips. One minute, Daniel is promising Lisa the world. The next, he's asking her to wire money for a family emergency. Fans started to wonder if Lisa was being played. But every time someone tried to warn her, she doubled down. She'd post long captions about trust, about how love means taking risks, about how people on the outside could never understand what she and Daniel had. Her friends tried to intervene, sending her articles about romance scams and stories from other women who'd been burned. Lisa would listen, nod, and then go right back to defending Daniel. She wanted so badly for this to work, for all the doubters to be wrong, for her story to be the exception. It's easy to judge from the outside, but when you're in it, hope can drown out every red flag. Lisa told herself that every couple has bumps, that cultural differences explain the awkward money talks, that Daniel's uncle is just looking out for his family. She replayed the sweet moments in her head, the way Daniel looked at her, the promises he made, the plans they whispered late at night. She wanted to believe that love could fix anything, that trust was stronger than suspicion. But the cracks kept spreading, and the pressure kept building. The uncle's presence became impossible to ignore. He started showing up at every conversation about the future, always steering things back to finances, always reminding Lisa of her responsibility as Daniel's future wife. Sometimes he'd slip in comments about how things work in Nigeria, how families share everything, how trust means putting your money where your mouth is. Lisa felt cornered, but she kept telling herself it was all part of the process. She didn't want to be the woman who ruined her own happiness by being paranoid. But the truth has a way of forcing its way to the surface. Lisa's doubts grew louder, and the tension in the house was thick enough to cut with a knife. She started keeping notes, saving messages, and watching Daniel more closely. The stage was set for a confrontation that would flip everything upside down, and nobody, not Lisa, not Daniel, not even the uncle, was ready for what was coming next. It happened late, when the house was quiet and the air felt heavy with secrets. Lisa couldn't sleep, her mind racing with questions she couldn't shake. She wandered down the hallway, hoping a glass of water might calm her nerves, but what she heard instead made her freeze in her tracks. Daniel and his uncle were in the living room, voices low but urgent, words tumbling out in a language Lisa only half understood. She caught her name, then something about assets, and before she changes her mind. Her heart pounded so loud she was sure they'd hear it. She pressed herself against the wall, straining to catch every word, but the conversation slipped in and out of English, leaving her with fragments that felt more dangerous than a full confession. Lisa's mind went into overdrive. Every sweet promise Daniel had made now sounded rehearsed. Every time his uncle smiled at her, she wondered what he was really thinking. She replayed the conversation in her head, trying to convince herself she'd misunderstood, that it was all a big mix-up. But the tone, the urgency, the way they spoke about her as if she wasn't even real, it all felt wrong. She wanted to believe in Daniel, to trust that their love was bigger than any suspicion, but the fear was impossible to ignore. Was she being paranoid, or had she finally stumbled onto the truth everyone else had seen from the start? The next morning, Lisa tried to act normal, but every interaction felt like a test. She watched Daniel pour her coffee, wondering if he was hiding something behind that easy smile. She listened to his uncle talk about family, about loyalty, about how important it was to protect what's yours. The words twisted in her mind, echoing the conversation she'd overheard. Lisa started second-guessing everything. Was the wedding about love, or was it about what she could provide? Was Daniel's affection real, or was it a mask for something darker? The line between trust and fear blurred until she couldn't tell which side she was on. Lisa's internal battle was relentless. Part of her wanted to confront Daniel, to demand answers, to lay everything out on the table. But another part of her was terrified of what she might hear. What if she was wrong? What if she destroyed the best thing that ever happened to her because she let fear win? The stakes felt impossibly high, and Lisa was trapped between the hope that she was loved and the dread that she was being used. Viewers at home were left guessing, too. Was Lisa reading too much into a private conversation, or had she finally caught Daniel and his uncle plotting something unforgivable? The internet exploded with theories, but nobody had the full picture. What Lisa didn't know yet was that there was a document buried deep in Daniel's files that could answer every question if she was brave enough to look. The truth was closer than she realized, and when it surfaced, it would shake everything to the core. Lisa couldn't hold it in any longer. The tension had been building for days, and now it was boiling over. She found Daniel in the kitchen, his phone in hand, and the words came out before she could stop herself. She demanded to know what he and his uncle were really planning, her voice shaking with anger and fear. Daniel looked stunned, then defensive, insisting she was overreacting. He said families in Nigeria always talk about money before marriage, that it was about building a future together, not taking advantage of her. Lisa wasn't buying it. She pressed harder, bringing up the late-night conversation she'd overheard, the talk about assets, the urgency in their voices. Daniel's face changed. First confusion, then frustration, then a flash of something she couldn't quite read. He tried to explain, saying his uncle was old-fashioned, that he wanted to make sure Lisa was serious about joining the family. Daniel said he loved her, that everything he'd said about their future was real, but Lisa could hear the cracks in his story. She asked about the document she'd found, the one that mentioned transferring property after the wedding. Daniel's answers got more desperate, his voice rising as he tried to convince her it was all a misunderstanding. He said she was letting outsiders poison her mind, that she was ruining everything by doubting him. The more he talked, the less Lisa believed him. Then, the uncle walked in, sensing the storm in the room. He tried to play peacemaker, telling Lisa she was part of the family now, that these conversations were normal, that trust meant sharing everything. But his words only made things worse. Lisa felt cornered, like she was being pressured from all sides to give up control of her life, her money, her future. The uncle's calm tone felt rehearsed, almost patronizing, and Lisa snapped. She told them both she wasn't stupid, that she knew when something felt wrong, that love shouldn't come with conditions or ultimatums. The argument spiraled, voices echoing through the house. Daniel accused Lisa of not understanding his culture, of being paranoid, of letting her friends and the internet get in her head. Lisa fired back, saying trust goes both ways, that she'd never asked him for anything except honesty. The uncle tried to smooth things over, but every word out of his mouth sounded like another excuse. The relationship, once so full of hope, was now in pieces on the floor. Lisa could feel the trust slipping away, replaced by a cold certainty that things would never be the same. But Lisa wasn't done yet. She had one more move to make, one that would take the drama from heartbreak to headline news. She started gathering every message, every document, every scrap of evidence she could find. What she was about to do next would send shockwaves through both families and leave everyone watching with their jaws on the floor. The legal bombshell was coming, and nobody was ready for what Lisa had planned. Lisa's hands shook as she scrolled through her phone, screenshotting every message, every bank transfer request, every conversation that now felt like a warning she'd ignored. She opened her laptop and started a folder, labeling it with the date she realized her life had split in two. Before the confrontation and after. Every detail mattered now. She saved voice notes, printed out emails, even wrote down the times Daniel's uncle had asked about her finances. It felt surreal, like she was building a case against someone she'd once wanted to marry. But the more she gathered, the more she realized she couldn't trust her memory alone. She needed proof, not just for herself, but for anyone who might question her story later. The decision to go to the police wasn't easy. Lisa sat in her hotel room for hours, staring at the folder on her laptop, replaying the confrontation in her mind. She thought about the look on Daniel's face when she brought up the document, the way his uncle tried to smooth things over, the feeling of being outnumbered in a place that was supposed to be her new home. She called a friend back in the States, her voice barely above a whisper, and said the words she'd been dreading, "I think I need help." The next morning, she walked into the local police station, folder in hand, and told her story to an officer who listened without judgment. She handed over her evidence, her heart pounding, and waited for the fallout. It didn't take long. Within days, Daniel and his uncle were taken into custody for questioning. The news spread like wildfire, first through whispers among the crew, then across social media, and finally onto the front pages of every reality TV gossip site. The show's producers scrambled to control the narrative, pulling footage, issuing statements, and trying to keep the cameras rolling without crossing any legal lines. Editors worked overtime, combing through hours of tape to see if they'd missed any signs, any moments that might have hinted at what was coming. The network's lawyers got involved, warning everyone to keep quiet until the investigation played out. Fans were divided. Some rushed to defend Lisa, calling her brave for standing up for herself, for refusing to be another statistic in a long line of reality TV heartbreaks. Others accused her of overreacting, of misunderstanding cultural differences, of blowing a private argument into an international scandal. Hashtags trended, memes exploded, and every new rumor sent the internet into a fresh frenzy. People dissected every episode, every Instagram post, every offhand comment Daniel had ever made about money or family. Theories multiplied, each one wilder than the last. Was Daniel a mastermind, or just a clueless romantic caught in a mess he didn't create? Was the uncle a puppet master, or a scapegoat? Nobody could agree, but everyone had an opinion. For Lisa, the noise was deafening. She turned off her phone, blocked notifications, and tried to find some peace in the chaos. But the isolation was crushing. She was alone in a foreign country, her relationship in ruins, her face plastered across the internet as the latest reality TV cautionary tale. She replayed every moment with Daniel, searching for signs she'd missed, wondering if she'd ever really known him at all. The regret was sharp, but so was the fear. What if she'd made a mistake? What if the police found nothing? What if she'd destroyed 2 lives, and her own, over a misunderstanding? The emotional toll was brutal. Lisa barely slept, haunted by dreams of Daniel's smile turning cold, of the uncle's polite words twisting into threats. She missed home, missed the days when love felt simple, missed the version of herself who believed in happy endings. She wondered if she'd ever trust anyone again, if she'd ever be able to watch another episode of the show without flinching. The producers checked in, offering support but also reminding her to keep quiet, to let the investigation run its course. Lisa felt like a character in someone else's story, her life edited and re-edited for maximum drama. Meanwhile, the investigation took on a life of its own. Police combed through Lisa's evidence, cross-referencing messages, checking bank records, interviewing witnesses. Daniel and his uncle maintained their innocence, insisting that everything had been above board. that Lisa had misunderstood their intentions. Their lawyers argued that cultural differences explained the financial conversations, that no crime had been committed. The case became a media circus, with reporters camped outside the police station, fans speculating about every new development, and the show's producers quietly sweating over what might come out next. But behind the scenes, something unexpected was brewing. Investigators found a detail in the timeline that didn't fit. A message sent weeks before Lisa and Daniel had even met in person, referencing a plan that sounded eerily similar to what Lisa had described. The sender wasn't Daniel, and it wasn't his uncle. It was someone else entirely, a name that hadn't come up before, someone connected to both families but never seen on camera. The discovery sent shockwaves through the investigation, raising new questions about who was really pulling the strings. Was Daniel a willing participant, or had he been manipulated too? Was the uncle the mastermind, or just another pawn in a bigger game? Lisa didn't know any of this yet. She was still waiting, still hoping for closure, still trying to make sense of a love story that had turned into a police report. The world watched, hungry for answers, but the truth was more complicated than anyone realized. The next twist was coming, and it would change everything, again. Detectives pored over every message, every bank transfer, every late-night call that Lisa had saved. They mapped out the timeline, looking for patterns, for proof that this was more than a messy breakup. The money trail was complicated, with small amounts moving between accounts, sometimes labeled as gifts, sometimes as business investments. Lisa's receipts painted a picture of growing pressure, requests for help with family emergencies, talk of joint ventures, promises that everything would be paid back once the wedding was official. The voice notes were even more revealing. Daniel's tone shifted over time, from sweet and reassuring to urgent and insistent, especially when money came up. The uncle's voice was calm, almost soothing, but always circling back to the same point. Trust means sharing everything. Daniel and his uncle stuck to their story. They told investigators that Lisa had misunderstood their culture, that in Nigeria, families talk openly about finances before marriage. They said the conversations about property and joint accounts were normal, that they never meant to pressure her or take advantage. Their lawyers argued that Lisa's evidence was out of context, that she'd cherry-picked messages to make them look guilty. They pointed to the show's cameras, saying if there was anything truly suspicious, it would have been caught on tape. But the producers were already combing through hours of footage, looking for moments that might have slipped past in the rush to create good TV. What the cameras missed was the slow erosion of trust, the way Lisa's smile faded as the questions piled up, the private arguments that never made it to air. Editors found clips where Daniel and his uncle exchanged glances when money came up, where Lisa hesitated before answering questions about her finances. There were scenes that felt innocent at the time but now look loaded with meaning. The show's lawyers debated what could be shown, what had to be cut, and how to protect everyone involved from a lawsuit. Lisa couldn't take it anymore. The investigation dragged on, the pressure mounting with every new headline, every fresh wave of online speculation. She packed her bags and left Nigeria, her dreams of a new life shattered. The airport felt cold and anonymous, but at least it was safe. She didn't look back. Daniel's reputation was in ruins, his social media flooded with hate and support in equal measure. The uncle disappeared from public view, his role in the story still a mystery. Fans argued over who to believe, but nobody had all the answers. The case was still open, the truth still tangled in a web of messages, money, and broken promises. But there was one last piece of evidence, something hidden in plain sight, that would turn the entire story upside down. When it finally came out, nobody watching would be able to look away. The question still hangs in the air, heavier than ever. Was Lisa the victim of a calculated scam? Or did two cultures collide in a way that destroyed something real? The investigation never delivered a simple answer. Some evidence pointed to planning, to conversations that felt too strategic to be innocent. Other details suggested confusion, crossed wires, and the kind of misunderstandings that happen when love moves faster than trust can keep up. Even now, fans argue in comment sections, each side convinced they see the truth. But for Lisa, the need for answers has faded. She's learned to live with the uncertainty, to accept that closure sometimes means letting go of the story you wanted and facing the one you got. Lisa's journey back home was quiet, nothing like the whirlwind that brought her to Nigeria. She deleted old photos, blocked numbers, and started therapy, determined not to let this chapter define her. The pain is still there, but so is a new sense of strength. She's more cautious now, less willing to believe in fairy tales, but not completely closed off to hope. She's found comfort in the messages from strangers who saw themselves in her story, who thanked her for speaking up, for refusing to stay silent when things felt wrong. Lisa's not the same woman who boarded that plane, and maybe that's the real ending. One where she gets to write her own next chapter. Daniel's life is a different kind of aftermath. The scandal follows him everywhere, online and off. Some people still believe he was misunderstood, that he loved Lisa in his own way, that the pressure of cameras and family expectations twisted everything out of shape. Others see him as the villain, the face of every warning about online romance gone wrong. He's lost friends, business opportunities, and the future he thought he was building. The uncle remains a shadow, his true intentions never fully revealed, his silence only fueling more speculation. For Daniel, the struggle is ongoing, a daily reminder that trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild. If there's a lesson here, it's not about blaming one side or the other. It's about how easy it is to lose yourself in a story, especially when the world is watching. Love on reality TV is never simple. Every promise is amplified, every doubt dissected, every mistake replayed for millions. The pressure to perform, to believe, to ignore your gut because you want the happy ending so badly, it's real and it's dangerous. Lisa's story is a warning, but it's also a reminder that you're allowed to ask questions, to protect yourself, to walk away when something feels off, even if everyone else is telling you to stay. Remember those early moments? The video calls, the laughter, the uncle's polite questions? Every seed of doubt planted back then grew into the chaos that followed. Every time Lisa ignored her instincts, every time Daniel brushed off her concerns, the cracks widened. The final reveal, the document, the messages, the hidden player in the background, proved that nothing on reality TV is ever as simple as it looks. The payoff isn't a neat ending, but a messy, human one, full of lessons and scars. And if you think this was wild, wait until you see what happened when another 90-day fiancé couple took secrets to a whole new level. The next scandal makes this one look like a warm-up. You won't believe who's at the center of it and what they did to keep their story off the radar until now.